This is like the
Okay.
line.
Yes. Welcome to the Hillsborough Township Planning Board Business Meeting of February 26, 2015. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This meeting has been duly advertised according to Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, the Sunshine Law. Roll call, please.
Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Dr. Maruli?
Here.
Mr. absent. Committeeman Delcor?
Here.
Mr. Merdinger?
Present.
Mr. Peason?
Here.
Mr. Lapani?
Here.
Chairman Sirici?
Here. First order of business, disposition of minutes. First minutes, January 15, 2015 meeting.
All members of the board present are eligible to vote, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Dr. Maruli?
Yes.
Committeeman Delcor?
Yes.
Mr. Merdinger?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Lapani?
Yes.
Chairman Sirici?
Yes. Next meeting minutes, the work meeting of January 22nd.
Mr. Chairman, those members eligible to vote on it are Dr. Maruli, yourself, Mr. Wagner, and Mr. Peason.
Motion to approve the minutes of January 22nd.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Dr. Maruli?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Chairman Sirici?
Yes. Next item of business is resolutions. Claremont Towers, which is Elias Maluk Realty Corp. This was application 14 PB 10 MSRV.
Mr. Chairman, the eligible members of the board to vote on the resolution are Mr. Wagner, Mr. Merdinger, Committeeman Delcor, and Mr. Lapani.
I'll move the resolution.
I'll second.
Who seconded? I'm sorry.
I did.
Mr. Wagner.
Mr. Wagner.
Okay.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Merdinger?
Yes.
Mr. Delcor?
Yes.
Mr. Lapani?
Yes.
I think that's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Next resolution is for application 14 PB 22 SR, the preliminary and final site plan for Viator Corporation, 115 Homestead Road, Block 201, Lot 7.01.
The eligible members of the board, Mr. Chairman, to vote on this resolution are yourself, Mr. Wagner, Mr. Merdinger, Dr. Maruli, Committeeman Delcor, and Mr. Peason.
Thank you.
I'll move that resolution.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Merdinger?
Yes.
Dr. Maruli?
Yes.
Mr. Delcor?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
And Chairman Sirici?
Yes. Next up is the planning board business, and the first is a minor piece of business, which is a extension for Chrismic Associates LLC, file 14 PB 21 MSR. The request was to extend the time of decision through June 11, 2015. Mr. Rydell, any comments?
Mr. Chairman, that correspondence is available for your consideration. It is listed on the planning board meeting of March 5, should you wish to consider it at that time, or now if you wish?
Oh, well, it's here now. That's fine. Do I have a motion to,
I'll move we give consent to the extension.
good?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Dr. Maruli?
Yes.
Mr. Delcor?
Yes.
Mr. Merdinger?
Yes.
Mr. Pearson?
Yes.
Mr. Lapani?
Yes.
Chairman Cerrucci?
Yes. Okay. And on to the business of the evening. That's the Capital Planning Committee recommendations for the 2015 capital budget. 3 of the planning board members sitting here, Mr. Pease and myself, Mr. Wagner, are on the Capital Planning Committee. We spoke to the 4 of the municipal departments, Public Works, Police, Engineering, and Parks and Rec, and heard their presentation on their priorities. There were about 28 items to rank. There was a little bit of shuffling from the original list of items. And over 2 meetings, the Capital Planning Committee came up with the ranking of those items. Now, I have the materials here. The presentations from engineering had mainly to do with roads to be paved, or resurfaced, I guess you should say, and also with barriers. There are wooden barriers in various places of the township where there are sharp curves, etc., and they're of an old style that actually can't be repaired. So one of the things that the engineering department, Mr. Bellinger, presented was a concept for sort of a 5-year plan. It would take about $500,000 to repair them all, and it is a safety issue. If barriers are broken, there's no way to fix them. The next car that hits that area goes straight through. What was proposed was $100,000 a year for 5 years. So you're going to see an item there that's ranked from the engineering department, which is the wood rail replacements, and actually came out number 5 as a safety issue. And that's 1/5, that $100,000 is approximately 1/5 of what it will take. So it's sort of, in a sense, committing to a 5-year plan to replace them all. As far as the other roads, New Amwell Road, which has the highest price tag, is also one that would have that price tag reduced by a state grant. So an application has been made to the state government for a $200,000 roughly grant. So if you get that grant, you actually have to use it and do the road. So that came the number 1 priority, and we usually do that with the road every year, with the road for which there is the state grant. The second road there for engineering was South Triangle Road. As people may or may not know, Triangle Road is going to be resurfaced based on capital appropriation for last year. Well, South Triangle Road, which serves a grammar school, a church, and is an access road for the middle school, is also in bad shape. So the proposal was that was the second rated road, came in 4th for its resurfacing. The third road that got rated, which came in at 9th, was Camp Lane Road, which is in a very bad shape and serves a number of businesses as well as a commuter road, cut-through road between Manville and Hillsborough, so it's heavily trafficked. One neighborhood road was ranked at 14th and essentially 14th and 15th, which was Longfield Drive plus one of its cul-de-sacs called Wide Circle. That's in the Row Hill Contempo West area. And that's a heavily trafficked development road, which is in places even breaking up somewhat on the surface. It would require maintenance this spring regardless. Again, between that and Wide Circle, that's about $450,000, and that was placed at 1415. The other priorities, and at this point, let's say the DPW ones, I would, Rich Rezevi's here, and I would have him speak briefly about, particularly about the six-wheel dump trucks with the snowplow and spreader, the reason why at least one of them is ranked second, and the power washer, which are the highest ranked, which is ranked 7th, which is the highest rank of this department. Rich, if you want to just come up and speak about them briefly.
Hello.
Look up, yeah. Oh, you can sit down too.
Oh, I
And
can
use
sit
that
down
mic.
too?
Yeah, you can sit and use that mic. No, that's fine.
Format here.
No, sure. Sit.
Just make sure you're talking to the mic.
Yeah, just get the mic close.
We started out the year in kind of rough condition with our trucks. Last year battered them pretty well. We were thinking it almost had a 4-year effect of wear and tear on the trucks from last year from the amount of snow events that we were out. We have currently 12 six-wheel dump trucks, and they age all the way from 1993, I believe, through 2010. What we're trying to do is get a fleet maintenance program that makes sense. And we're putting since we have trucks, we're putting like a 12-year limit on the trucks, and we know that's probably going to go longer. We're asking for a good quality truck in the trucks, the name brand Mack. That's what we would like to have, because we know that the trucks have to make a long haul over the years. These trucks are counted on to salt the roads. That's the main, even more so than plowing. They have to run when we get in them. They can't be something that is going to be ineffective and iffy, and that's the point we're at. That's why we're asking 2 for this year. We asked for 2 last year. We had gotten 1, and we appreciate it, the approval for that. And we're trying to catch up for kind of lost time with that. I think it's just a benefit to the town. We're going to be picking up more development roads, and our response time has to be there for us to serve the town well. And this is pretty much just that simple. The power washer, just for the maintenance on things. We have a cold power washer right now, just cold water. The hot water feature on it had broken several years ago, and that needs to be updated. It's a crucial part of what we do, and we don't have it. And again,
It maintains the vehicles
the
you spend the
trucks,
money
yes.
on. Yes.
yeah.
For want of a nail, the horse is lost, right? So for $15,000, you get to maintain all these $250,000 trucks. Exactly. Now, the other truck is on the list. Obviously, there are a lot of priorities, and it was very difficult. And believe me, we know as a committee trying to rank everything was very difficult. But the second truck came in at 21. But clearly, next year another truck would rank high again. So it's just a question of trying to get as much in there as possible. But certainly one truck we felt strongly enough to rate it second.
Good. We're doing different things with the trucks too. We're taking some of the older trucks and considering putting newer spreaders on them and kind of dedicating them to just that, because we don't need the dump truck feature consistently throughout the year. So we're going to do what we can to piece things together and have it work as well as we can, but it'll keep us going until more equipment is approved.
Any questions for Rich? No? Thanks, Rich.
Matter, Bob? Did you have a question?
No, I was going to thank Rich for all of his,
Yeah.
and his
yes,
his
of
team's
course.
efforts
Yeah.
with the fine weather we've been having as usual. I certainly
Yeah.
appreciate
Another
it.
fun year.
Another fun
Oh,
year,
yeah,
Rich. So,
like
we're-
last year,
so-
another fun one,
Yeah,
exactly.
Please
Rich,
pass it
actually,
along. Thank you.
Rich
the question
actually-
from comparative to last year, I know last year we put a lot of wear on. I know this has been a bad year, not as bad, but I'm assuming that the sort of back-to-back cumulative is putting additional pressure on the need for the two.
We actually lucked out because we're not getting the snowfall totals that would put the pressure on the trucks. If we had the amounts that we were last year, we would be in trouble. There's no doubt about it. We have things breaking on the trucks that are a couple $1,000 items on a consistent basis, and our guys do maintain them. It's just that things are worn. You know, you're watching motor mounts break. That's something that's not usually an item that goes on trucks. You know, springs are cracking. The trucks are, you know, they're getting to the end of their life cycle. So we're up, I think, 20-some events right now, and we were 24 last year at this stage. So it's deceivingly right there. Material events with the sand and the salt, we're right there. But we just haven't had the inches and the spectacular amounts on the roofs and the roads to make it seem like we've had that much. So we're right there like last year again.
Thanks, Rich.
In terms of parks, John Crossan did the presentation for Parks and Rec. The wide area mower is a cornerstone of what they do. You want to cut a field, that thing cuts a field the most efficient way possible. And without that thing, and the one they have now is basically falling apart, literally falling apart, pieces coming off of it. So the cornerstone of their operation needs to be replaced. It's that old, and you know, they're keeping the motor going, but the actual body is coming apart. So that's why that was you don't mow the fields without that, which is why that was number 3. There were a couple of smaller items in the skate park blacktop resurfacing and the basketball courts renovation. You would think that those don't seem to be high priority, but they're heavily used, and the breaking up of the surfaces becomes a bit of a safety hazard, particularly for the ones on wheels in the skate park. For basketball, less so, but you know, you could talk about whether that, you know, should be a 10 or low or whatever, but they are very heavily used, and they are quite cracked, and we thought that the skate park blacktop issue was even a safety issue, quite frankly. The surface in parts is so bad that it really should be redone.
It's amazing how much activity that little
Yeah.
skate park gets.
I mean, Ann Van is our park, our premier park, and it gets a lot of use. And that's why these were Ann Van things, as was the concept of putting up some fencing for a dog park, which is only $10,000. It wouldn't take much, but we could actually, with a little bit of fencing, use fencing that's already there and create for Hillsborough a dog park. Now, one is planned for that you know, the Belmead thing eventually, but in the meantime, for very cheap, we can get one right now. And that's that was at 13. The other things from parks were lower ranked, and there are a few of them, and perhaps they can come up in future years. For public safety, gentlemen, if you wanted to talk about your priorities, come on up. The highest one we rated was the Crime Fighter Beast Evidence Management System, which I'll let the lieutenant explain, because I'm not the one to explain. Go ahead.
Good evening, Lieutenant Pryor from Hillsborough Police, obviously.
Yeah.
Thing we had on the list, one of the main ones. Good now?
Yeah.
Is
Gotta get
the
close, yeah.
Crime Fighter Beast Management System. John Sheridan's here. He's the civilian that runs the evidence locker, and he can explain any questions you have about that. But it's basically the only the piece of the department right now that we haven't really computer upgraded. All our evidence is done in old style, where basically you fill out a card, and then somebody puts a piece of tape on there with a number or a tag and marks it, and that's how it's stored, and nothing's computerized. When we got accredited, that was one of the things that accreditation brought up to us and said, man, you guys are really kind of outdated with this. Everything else in the police department's been computerized. There is no backup for the evidence management system that I'm aware of. It's just those cards. If there was a fire or if something happened with that they got damaged, there's no other way to back that up. This was something we were looking into to update our evidence system and convert everything over to that. It's a barcoded system, and I believe the state police are using it. It's something we've looked into, and we think that will work out good for us.
Any questions about the evidence management, which probably in 2015 should transition off of cards?
Yes.
You think maybe?
Like the Dewey Decimal System?
Yeah. As for the defibrillator replacement, they don't require explanation. Right? People generally like to live if they can. Next up, the network switches. Could you explain what they're for? I mean, they seem to me a little bit like a maintenance item, but probably they should be done. But go ahead, explain what those are for.
You know, you're going to catch me off guard with that question because I'm not the IT guy.
Oh, you're not the IT
I
guy,
would have
that's
brought him, but you know, he was here before and he talked about him. I don't know if he was before this committee or if he was before the other committee. In simple terms, he told me they're basically like a very expensive electrical socket. You need that to run your whole system, and if they go down, then our whole computer system goes down. The ones that Mr. Panino has for us, I believe, have redundancy in them, and that's to keep all our systems upgraded or running. If they do go down, they will continue to run with that backup in there, and that's why he needs these. Last time I talked to him, I know ours are older. He needs to cycle them out, and that's why he's asking for those.
So as I understand it, it's not something that's failed right now, otherwise we wouldn't have a computer system, but rather something that the IT guy for the police is thinking needs to be maintained sooner rather than later, redone.
Yeah.
Next up is the live scan device replacement. Now, we ranked this lower, Lieutenant, because you said the one you have is working and you're kind of, you're looking at this as sort of like something that has to be done in the near future, but you do have one that's operational now. But if there's some way that we didn't understand it correctly, please.
No, you understood it correctly. That was put on there that this is a future thing that we believe is going to need to be replaced based upon federal law that had to do with them mandating us to take palm prints for sex offenders, which we don't have the capability to do on our system now, nor, to my understanding, we have the capability to upgrade. The system that we have now is getting older, and that's why we're looking in the future to replace that system.
Okay. And as far as the sign for police headquarters, the committee believes that it's needed. We didn't know if that $15,000 sign was needed, but some signage is needed, and I'm sure the Township Committee and Administrator can look into what kind of signage options there are.
What were you looking specifically there for? Just
With the sign?
yeah, on the outside or
On the outside
Okay.
specifically. Over the years, if you notice when the cut-through was put through recently over there to make it a one-way, the signs over there used to direct people in the main entrance to go to the right to come to the police department. You can no longer do that because there's a one-way there. So the signs kind of point police. I think the arrow was actually blacked out, so it didn't go to the right. So you come forward into the lot over by the library at night or at certain times. If you're not familiar with this, people are coming here from other areas to make reports, pick somebody up. They really don't know where we're at, and they can't find us. During daytime hours, they'll walk through the main municipal building and kind of find their way to us. But at night, it's more difficult. Also, when the radio tower went up, all that white fencing went around there, we kind of started to get more and more hidden from the public, and the chief wanted a more visible way for them to find
You're
us.
talking about directional signs to get people
Directional
through
signs.
the parking lot to where you.
Yes, he
your
wanted
entrance is.
basically lighted directional signs, which was going to be the cost to.
Neon,
Yeah.
flashing.
We got you.
Neon would be orange, yes. Well, I mean, the thought being that, and maybe you wanted to explore alternatives with DPW.
That's right. I was looking at Rich back there.
That, about how to do the signage that maybe, wouldn't be $15,000. It's all, but I mean, the signage, it's not that the signage isn't needed. It just, you might have other ways of doing it. So, any questions for the Lieutenant?
I have one, just.
Yes.
Thank you. For the live scan device, there's a parenthesis, annual cost and operation of $4,000. Is that for the existing system you have now or for the future system? For maintenance and operation?
I don't have my sheet in front of me on the live scan. There is a yearly maintenance contract that we have to pay to the vendor, that they come out and replace anything that goes down on service contracts, everything like that. That's what that's in reference to.
Okay.
So a new one would have that too.
So it's the new one.
Yeah, the thing is, though, that I think that things like annual contracts need to go in the operating budget, not the capital budget.
Yeah, I think historically,
Yeah.
the chief has added those to the list just to show that if there's a piece of equipment that they need, if there's an ongoing expense related to it,
maintenance costs?
just to give us.
Yeah,
full
the first bill they get might be $39,000, $35,000 for the unit, and $4,000 for the first year's whatever. So, I mean, I don't know. That's however our CFO pays that.
Okay.
But then after that, that's the operating budget.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lieutenant.
And I've covered most of the major, I think I've covered pretty much all the major items there. There are a few other items that are a little bit further down the list because we can't rate everything on the top. Dump truck, a few things for the parks, which would be nice to haves, of course. A couple of dump trucks with snowplow. No, that's the second dump truck with snowplow and spreader. That's because they asked for two, so we high-ranked one and the other one went down lower. The lowest ranking one was the expansion of the municipal building parking lot because that price would seem to indicate pavement with gold leaf. And we didn't think that actually it's for having to do actually it would be more money because you'd have to do drainage underneath it because of the ridiculous regulations from the DNR Canal Commission and all of that. So we thought that it was very impractical. That's about it.
Any particular areas that were referenced for the sidewalks? I know it says various.
Oh, yeah, the sidewalks. Tom Bellinger has a plan. So what happens is that every year in your in the capital budget, you've got $75,000. We recommend it every year. And this is developer money, so this doesn't come from general funds. But there's a developer fund, a sidewalk fund. So whenever there's a development and they don't actually build the sidewalks because it's not appropriate for whatever reason to build them where they are, they contribute to the sidewalk fund. So there's a fund that builds up over the years, and there's just a steady withdrawal of $75,000 every year. And Tom in the engineering department maintains the priority list. So every year he redoes.
Was there any particular ones?
He didn't
discussed?
mention.
Okay,
No,
that's what I
I
was
mean, he
more
didn't mention
curious.
which ones.
He focuses on the link-ups,
Right.
where you
Yeah.
have the gaps, but I think we got most of the gaps. There was Triangle Road was a bunch of them.
Yeah.
But there's always repairs, too.
Yeah, they get pounded up with the snow and the ice and everything, so he reviews them and then he puts together his priority list, and then he'll do $75,000 worth of replacements
I
every
was just
year.
trying to figure out if there was a specific
No,
area
I
they were
don't
targeting.
know, he
Okay.
didn't mention any specific areas. We
Okay.
talked a lot about the roads, and believe me, those weren't the only roads. He just picked the top five.
Yeah, we.
I
He
mean,
didn't mention Clausen Avenue.
oh, he did,
No, I meant you didn't.
no, I didn't mention Clausen. I'm sorry, I was trying to look for everything. I forgot, there's Clausen, that's right, it's 16. So Clausen, which Mr. Merninger lives on, is also not in great shape. It really isn't. I mean, I've been on it too. And, you know, Longfield's in my neighborhood. I live on one street over from Longfield. You
Yours
actually,
is new compared to.
no, believe me, if you looked at Longfield,
New is a term of.
as a neighborhood,
built.
yeah. So, my neighborhood was built in '87. Yours is older
I
than
was
that.
on the planning board then.
Yeah, I know. So, in other words, there are a number of roads, so what Tom gave us was like basically a top 5 or 6. He could give us a lot more, but he, again, maintains a priority list, and he shows us, he's got maps in all different colors of what was done when and what needs to be done next. So he takes us through the top 5 or 6 and shows us the photos, which are all ugly. And so, you know, we end up ranking them and try to intermingle them with all the other priorities as best as we can.
And the fact of the matter is, the road repair has been exacerbated by the last 2 winters, so.
Oh, it sure has.
The program we've got implemented just has been impacted by our weather situation. So we put a lot of money aside last year, but we're gonna have to look at it again heavily this year.
Yeah, I mean,
250 miles of road, and that's just the way it is.
yeah, it is. I mean, the concept of paving and asphalt, which I think started in the 19th century, right, Mr. McAdam from Scotland, you know, it came when you know, oil just popped out of the ground and it was cheap. And once crude oil became expensive, paving with asphalt, the dynamics of it, the financial dynamics of it changed massively. And it's a huge problem everywhere, particularly throughout the parts of the country where there's winters with snow and ice. I mean, I can't speak for Florida. Hawaii, they have a problem because the volcanoes destroy the roads, at least in the Big Island. I've seen that. But where there's snow and ice, it's a wonder how sustainable it's going to be going forward, where you're using crude oil to pave roads, basically. I think we're going to need a technological breakthrough to find out another way to pave roads that doesn't cost so much, isn't based on crude oil. I mean, and you can't say, well, just concrete, because that's pretty expensive too. So I don't know the answer. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Mr. Delcor there. That's it's a tough problem. Any consideration about the list? Any thoughts about whether you're okay with the ranking, whether you want to move it around? The planning board some years does a lot of moving, some years not so much. Obviously, the township committee in the end takes the list and funds what they fund. Any thoughts before we send it to the township committee about the rankings?
Seems very reasonable.
Now, Bob, Rob, and I were on the committee,
Yes,
so
yeah.
I'm not asking us. I'm not
we're good
asking
with
us for a comment. We already.
I think the committee did a great job.
I thought we were brilliant.
Yes.
But no, I mean,
I'll second
so I mean, Sean, Frank,
Well,
Dr. Dan.
I'll just say that it appears that the committee took into consideration the immediate needs for the township from a safety standpoint. Also from a standpoint of highest used public properties, i.e. the lawnmower. And from my experience, those mowers, just for $60,000, they're very expensive to maintain. When they start breaking, their parts are very expensive. So you start buying that machine 2 and 3 times over once it starts to break down.
That's exactly what John Crossan told us. Yes,
And
they're actually.
being that I'm in the business,
Yeah.
I try to give my customers that same advice. There's a point, just like a car, where it's time to let it go and replace it. And that $60,000 price tag seems like it's large, but really, in the long run, is not. And the efficiency of these newer mowers and how they're built is even 5-10 years from yesteryear are much better. So that's what I can put into my knowledge on the lawnmowers. But the rest of it, I think, as a taxpayer, it feels like there's a fair disbursement of things being done for everybody. and I think that's the ultimate goal of what your task was, so I give you credit for that.
Thank you.
Dr. Dan, any thoughts?
Yeah, well, Bob and I had a conversation about the cost of paving, and I didn't have, a good understanding of it, but Bob was, explaining how there's additional costs for storm drains and requirements, so it's not just a matter of redoing the paving, it's also retrofit, yeah.
Yeah,
And,
you have to
it's
retro,
just-
every new paving, you have
Yeah.
to retrofit. And then a road that gets a state grant has to be, what do they call that now?
Complete road.
A complete
Yeah,
road
yeah.
under state regulations, so it has to be designed to a super standard if you're gonna get a state grant for it.
And that includes walkways at intersections and
Bike lanes.
bike lanes,
Which
yeah.
New Amwell Road is set up to have already, you see.
Yeah, right,
So it's
yeah.
perfect for a state grant for resurfacing.
Yeah.
That's the idea. New
Yeah.
Amwell is built that way
Right,
already.
yeah.
Um,
So it adds quite a bit to the cost of, it's not just paving, so.
Yeah, when the stormwater regulations came from DEP a few years ago, they demanded that every resurfacing comes with a retrofit of the storm drain.
I think those grates, what were they, about 350, 400 apiece, aren't they?
Yeah.
That's just the grate,
Yeah.
not to put it in. And
That's right.
so, if you have 20 of those on a road, that's.
And you tend to think of resurfacing as a two-dimensional thing, but it's three-dimensional. There's a thickness,
Yep.
right? And in that thickness comes the tonnage of what you're doing there, how many tons of crude oil product you're putting on the ground.
I just had my parking lot redone, I'm painfully aware of that, yes.
There you go. Anybody who has becomes aware, absolutely. Okay,
Yeah.
committeeman?
So obviously, we'll go through this at the
Well, yeah, I mean, you get
upcoming
another
township
crack at
committee
it,
meeting,
yeah.
but, my concern remains the road work that needs to be done. Obviously, given the impact to the residents, but when you look at the cost of these repaving projects, especially for the longer roads that are tend to be the commuter roads, it's a significant undertaking, but really something that we've got to look heavily at to make sure that the roads are getting maintained. So that's going to be a key area of focus that we're going to have to look at. As far as the equipment stuff, as Sean noted, I think we did. The committee always does a good job of trying to balance priorities across departments, recognizing that typically everyone has some needs. But in any given year, we can't fill all needs of all departments. But we work as closely as you can within the budget constraints to make sure we've got the key priorities. And I do appreciate the diligence and the work that goes in from the capital planning committee to not so much determine the individual rank orders, but certainly the priority issues, to go through that work of determining for us where the view is as to what should be a priority. Helps us to figure out how we construct our budgets going forward. So I just want to thank the committee for that work, and we'll look forward to a similar presentation at one of the township committee meetings coming up.
Okay. I would actually, at this point, if there's any comment from anyone else in the audience, now's the time to make it. This is our item of business tonight, so any comments? Okay. Yes, oh, sure, and from the department heads, too. You're included.
I don't think I maybe have done a good enough job selling the need for the radios, the two-way radios in the trucks.
Okay.
If that could just be revisited at
Sure,
some
sure.
point.
Talk about it. Go ahead.
We always found that it was a safety feature from a lot of different aspects, and it also touched on some of the departmental policies that we have within Public Works as far as kind of not using the cell phones during the workday other than an emergency. And it's kind of hard to do that when that's your sole way of communicating with people's personal cell phones. It's very important during a snow event. We're able to reach multiple vehicles. We're able to reach the police, which we've had in the past, and that's extremely important for us, maybe even more than the police, but we like to get a hold of them from a truck-to-truck basis, because we will do that. We haven't had it running correctly for a while. The town would benefit from a lot of standpoints, especially in an emergency situation. We've had the hurricanes recently. The dispatch trucks, a few at a time, you just can't do it any other way except for a radio system. And if you're not in that type of environment, you might not get it as much. But to be involved in that, where you have to be making cell phone calls to individual guys and having them pull over to talk on their phones, and it's just an arduous process compared to just having them listen to it on the radio band. So my thing is, if you would just maybe consider that. I don't know how it was really looked at as far as being important, but for us it would be nice, bless you, to have it kind of up there somewhere where it's a consideration.
A higher priority.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, Rich, because I know, we talked to you on the phone, and then we had a second meeting to discuss the ranking. And I think that and correct me if I'm wrong, Bob and Rob, but I think that among us we were a little confused about just what exactly would we be doing with those trucks, because we all remember the narrow band and then mandate, and then beyond that, the narrow banding of VHF, the switching to the county's UHF system. And we weren't, which I believe has been done, so we weren't clear on what exactly you were proposing to do, whether you were going to do narrowband VHF that was compatible with the township's now backup system. Were you asking for UHF that plugs into the county the way that the emergency services do? So we were kind of left not sure what to recommend, so we kind of put in the middle as a compromise.
Yeah, the county system, we would be able to talk to you from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, from what I gather. And that's not something we need. We just need to communicate between our trucks. And we can do that effectively for that amount of money that we asked for.
Which would be an internal narrowband VHF system. Okay.
But,
so now
allow us to
but in
operate.
addition to your trucks, it would allow you to communicate to the police vehicles.
We could do it, we could reach the police, and we could also have the managers talking amongst themselves on separate channels in a private way, so we could kind of manage on the run with that too. So it has a multitude of good things that we don't have the capability to do now, other than using our own cell phones. So I think it's a good investment for the money that we're able to do that again. We've always been able to do it, and we don't really have that capability now.
I think we might have also have looked at what your priority ranking was for the items that you had, and maybe that was part of our deliberation of where to put that. If the radios were your number one, then
right.
We absolutely take that into consideration. Each department has their top priorities, and we try to give credence to that type priority being higher than some other department's top priority.
No,
so
understood.
Part of that is maybe why that got kind of shuffled down into the middle.
My problem is usually having 4 number ones.
Yes. My advice next time is put them in priority order, but list them all number one.
Bellinger had 6 or 7 number ones.
Yes.
And
I think we need to reconsider what number one means.
And please do the YS.
I would actually, if the lieutenant feels okay with this, if this is not in the IT realm, how do the radios work, the UHF, VHF? They could talk to you with the internal sort of just Hillsborough VHF system, even while you're using the UHF. See, that's not the lieutenant's thing. I guess that. He's making terrible faces, so that means I'm not the guy to talk to about it. Get the IT guy. So, you know what? I'm sure that what can happen is that
we'll revisit this.
the township
Between
committee,
now
the
and
administrator will
township committee.
revisit this communication thing and, see how that works. But, and obviously, this is just a ranking list. The township committee ultimately adopts what it adopts, and there are going to be discussions between now and when they adopt the capital budget. And if this, fleshes out, it's only $15,000, and this becomes very clear what you're going to do, then they can move it up there. It doesn't matter where we rank it.
I just wanted to make sure it was
guess-
explained effectively.
Yeah.
I didn't miss my chance. with
Did
it.
you have the pressure washer ranked above the?
Yeah.
like 2A and 2B?
Depends on when I'm coming up here.
Is that, right now you need the pressure washer, and in a storm you want the,
I think it changed
my
during the
point is they're
meeting.
almost interchangeable, so at the cost factor, that's why I asked if, since you had a pressure washer that was working, sorta.
Yeah, but it's a cold one, and that's
Yeah,
not very good at
spring's
0
coming.
degrees out.
Spring's coming.
And I'm not sure how that's working with the salt and grease, you know?
I think his radio communications are important to move up or take.
Well, we can do that, you know.
For $15,000.
No, I mean, we can simply say, take the radio and move it up to go between, and then that's the new ranking.
Yeah.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
So that's something that the committee can do right now, just as part of the ranking. You know, the board can do right now, just as, you know, the ranking. There's no problem with that. If you all have an idea where, if you wanted to reslot it somewhere. But in the end, the township committee will, you know.
The only thing I would suggest is that we move it up just to the end of the high rankings.
Exactly.
So that we categorize it as high, it's reflected that way.
Yep.
I agree with you, Rich. We should have the ability to,
perfect.
on our own channel, be able to communicate between the trucks. We shouldn't be relying upon guys' cell phones.
Yeah.
So maybe right above
especially-
the dog fencing?
Definitely above Clausen Avenue.
Oh.
It's below Clausen right
Or just below the dog fencing?
Yeah, either 13 or 14, yeah, maybe make it 14, below, just above Longfield, and make it a high ranking. This way we know it's something we think we should
No,
do.
thank you. I just wanted to make sure I was doing my job explaining it.
Yep.
Because I know I was on the phone during the presentation. I appreciate that you guys listened to that. So here I am to ask again.
See, with the phone, we didn't have the puppy dog look. Okay. All right, so, very good. That went up. All right, so then I guess we need a motion to adopt the ranking list as amended and pass it up to the township committee.
If you would, it's a resolution, Mr. Chairman, of the Hillsborough Township Planning Board supporting the recommendations of the Capital Planning Committee for the 2015 capital budget for recommendations to the Township Committee. Whereas the Planning Board heard a presentation at its regular business meeting held on February 26, 2015, made by members of the Capital Planning Committee, at which time the list of prioritized project proposals submitted and determined to be eligible for the 2015 capital budget were reviewed, and whereas the Planning Board members discussed the recommendations as prioritized by the Capital Planning Committee and ranked according to the criteria established by the Capital Planning Committee as H, high priority, M, medium priority, and L, low priority, in accordance with the Capital Planning Committee meetings held on February 5th, 2015 and February 11th, 2015. Now therefore be it resolved by the Planning Board of the Township of Hillsborough and the County of Somerset, State of New Jersey, that the Planning Board supports the recommendations of the Capital Planning Committee for the 2015 capital budget and recommends the attached ranking as amended to the Township Committee for consideration and potential adoption.
There it is.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Merdinger?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Peason?
Yes.
Mr. Lafani?
Yes.
Dr. Maruli?
Yes.
Mr. Delcor?
Yes.
And Chairman Cerucci?
Yes. Thanks to the department heads, to the other members of the Capital Planning Committee present here tonight and who were at the meetings. Huh?
We have one in the audience.
Andrew?
Thank you.
Thank you. And to the board. The only other thing is you have some correspondence from the Sauerland Conservancy that you can read at your leisure. Our next meeting is March the 5th, correct? We have some business scheduled for there. We need to cancel the meeting of March the 12th, for which we have no business scheduled. Is there a motion?
Chairman?
Yes.
Before you make that motion,
Uh-huh.
may I ask the board to take a 2-minute recess? I want to talk to the chairman about the March 12th meeting.
Oh, okay. 2-minute recess then. Quick.
Okay.
Bruce?
Wow. That was fast.
Frank? And then we're going to conclude fairly quickly. Yes?
Back on.
Back on? Okay. So, about scheduling. Although at one point we were looking at March the 12th for some planning board business, which was zoning ordinance introduction, we did eventually actually hit on the March 26th business meeting as the appropriate time to do that. So that left the March 12th meeting blank. So if I could have a motion to cancel the March 12th meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that's canceled. And then March 26th will be the meeting at which we introduce, for the planning board's perspective, what the so-called Ferrera hearing, because we started doing these when he was mayor, the sort of the planning board's introduction of zoning ordinance or ordinances, I don't know exactly how they'll be divided, that enact the master plan amendment of 2 years ago for the East Amwell Road area that's just east of town center. If people may recall, again, in 2005, that was in that master plan amendment, that was a transit-oriented village, was the concept because there was going to be a train station there. But with the elimination of the tunnels across the Hudson, so went the plans for the train line. So the master plan was revised 2 years ago to instead put the gateway concept there, just like there's the gateway concept to the north of town center and to the south of town center on 206, to put the gateway concept to the eastern town center on Amwell Road. And while we did the master plan amendment, we never actually did the zoning ordinances, so now we need to enact the zoning ordinances to be consistent with the master plan amendment. So that's the March 26th meeting, is to sort of introduce that concept. And then after that, the township committee introduces it. Then under state law, it comes back to the planning board for endorsement, and then it goes to the township committee for the public hearing. Okay? That's March 26th. But in any case, the next we'll see you is March 5th for the regular meeting. Motion to adjourn.
So
Motion to
moved.
take cancel the 12th.
Second?
Second.
Was there a
Well-
motion to
I
cancel?
motion to adjourn.
Was it?
No.
We-
motion to
Oh, and a
cancel
motion to cancel the meeting.
the meeting
No,
on
no,
the
no, no,
12th.
the 12th.
You did that already.
We did that already.
Yeah.
We did a voice vote.
Thank you.
And is it-
Okay.
The ayes had it, yeah.
Yes, we did a voice vote. It was all ayes, no nays. So, motion to adjourn this meeting. And we had motion and
I
second.
have a second, Mr. Wagner, right?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Good night.
Done.
Say
Good
goodnight,
night,
Dallas.
Mr. Chairman.